transformation that we are having. I just want to check if my screen is visible correctly. Can anybody confirm?
Yes, we can.
It's visible.
Okay, thank you. So before I get into what is Infoblox, I want to start with what are some of the trends that we are seeing, especially in the smart cities environment, that are trending towards looking at cybersecurity as a critical aspect of the overall design. The first is the increment of utilization of technology, both in the IoT space, that is the sensors that are getting deployed for doing the better citizen services, to allow the government to collect the data, use it for providing more and more creative ways to ensure that the citizen and people can have a better quality of life. The second thing is the data that has been collected is moving from just the monitoring piece of the society towards doing prediction and simulation, because the advantage of using machine learning and AI is with the data that we have, we can take a lot of better decisions. And the third is, with the pandemic hitting us very hard, we are seeing a lot of local and regional governments starting these emergency services, surveillance services, these sensors that are collecting a lot of data like temperature, cameras are checking the movements, that allows them to have a system that is in place, which at the end of the day ensures the safety and security of all the citizens. But if we look at what are some of the challenges, they typically remain the same when we look at a typical IT design versus a smart city wherein you have both IoT and IT systems. The only thing is the challenges increase because now we also have to look at the IoT piece at the same time. So visibility of the diverse endpoint from a monitoring perspective is very critical, because we're looking at thousands of these sensors getting deployed, and it is challenging for the cities to track, monitor, and provide the better services using that. And the second is, of course, the security of the data that is being collected. There is a lot of challenge in terms of how do we make sure that people's data, the citizens' data that is getting collected and stored in the systems are also safe at the same time, and nobody can use it for the malicious purposes. And the third is the ecosystem that we're building for the smart cities. We want to ensure that we are deploying a core foundation layer that helps everybody to have a better utilization of the services. The risk is real because some of the recent incidents that we have heard, especially the ransomwares targeting the smart cities. In fact, in last couple of years, there have been multiple instances where cities have got severely impacted, and not only they had to pay a lot of money to get their data back, but at the same time there is a lot of system impact. The services were down, the payments were down, and there is also a lost trust from a citizen's perspective when things like this happen. So where does Infoblox come in? So Infoblox come in as a specialized provider of the platform that is designed to ensure the success of the smart city projects from an IT and IoT standpoint. So we are helping government to build that core foundation layer that ensures that even when there are the utilization of cloud, software-defined networking, the foundation layer of DNS and DHCP and IP address management moves along with the speed of how this data is being utilized. And the second is security, because on the ransomware attacks that we're seeing, more than 90% of those attacks use DNS as one critical protocol, that is domain name service. And Infoblox is specializing into the DNS as well as DNS security. So the platform that we offer to government organizations and smart cities is the Blox One Threat Defense platform that starts with the visibility, because we strongly believe that it is not possible to secure the infrastructure unless you get complete visibility. And luckily, the DNS is one protocol that sees everything on the network, right from our IoT devices, the applications, users, physical cloud, multi-cloud environment. So you get to see what is running into the environment. Using that information, we are able to enforce the security at the first line of defense. So DNS, which is typically used as first point of communication, now becomes your first line of defense as well, because we're able to use technologies such as machine learning, DNS firewall, the cyber threat intel platform, to ensure that even if there is one malicious device in the network, because that is eventually going to use DNS, we're able to detect it, remediate it, respond it, so that the environments, the IT infrastructure, the IoT system can stay safe, secure, and continue to operate. And at the end of the day, we want to also ensure that while there are a lot of security devices that are getting deployed in the network, the Infoblox platforms integrates very well with these systems to automate a lot of the incidents that we are seeing. Because at the end of the day, you do not want to deploy thousands of security people just to look at the number of incidents that are getting generated and to manually respond to all those threats. So this is our specialty. This is where we play into it to help the government organizations build a safe, a better, an autonomous, and an integrated environment, and then provide security on top of it. So this is pretty much what I wanted to cover in my initial 5 minutes of conversation. Handing it back to you, Alpesh.
Thanks, Pankaj. That was quite thoughtful for us, ma'am. Since you've got to be there, my first question would be towards you, Garima ma'am. You've Faridabad recently for the ICCC, the policy roadmap that you've created has been selected by World Economic Forum. Could you please throw some light on what that made you stand apart from the other smart cities?
See, I will simply say that smart city is an lighthouse, and we are learning from each other. So each one of the smart city is contributing to each other's growth. So we are not into a competition as to stand out. We are into peer-to-peer learning, and that is the hand holding that we are getting from the central government also. So we were encouraged to make our own data policy. So, to
Okay.
my knowledge, around 16 to 17 cities they have made their data policy, and the draft was given by NIUA. So, as very rightly mentioned in the introductory PPT, that there are issues of data privacy, there are issues of public's data being, mismanaged by IT and these ransomwares and all. We also have these cybersecurity issues, and we also fear when we get so much of data. In fact, there are issues when a department shares data with the other department. So this data policy is in place, but still, lots of data needs to be cleaned, and we should have metadata to be shared. So these issues remain, and they are very, very real dangers to us when we get lots of data. So, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
So, rightly so, we are into multiple experiments, policy parameters are being tried and improved upon. But still, I feel a lot needs to be done. It's a very, it's a very nascent stage we are in, and this needs to grow over the time. So we will need the help of the MNCs and other the companies like just you have mentioned. But there's still lots of fear factors between the interdepartmental sharing of data and also for the data monetization. Like meet
Right.
some fellows. They were through the government of India, the smart city mission at Delhi, and they were doing a very fantastic job. They were the data scientists who were actually crunching our CCTV data for last 1 year. We had lots of inputs, as in we had lots of useful data coming up, and one map India and other startups, they showed their interest also in the data. But there is so much of fear factor of how to go about this data that we were not ready to do data monetization. Any open source data also that we want to give, we will give only through the central government. So these
Right.
are the bottlenecks, and I think they are the determinants of the success.
Okay, I can't hear you, ma'am.
Slowly, hope. Yeah.
Sorry, you're not audible.
गाड़ी रोक ले रहे थे. Am I
Yeah,
audible now?
yeah. Sorry, ma'am. You're not audible. I think you've probably got a patchy network.
Hiccups, yes, but needs to be streamlined. The second, the smart city mission at Government of India is trying to this issue, and I'm very hopeful, but we are very hesitant also to go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those opening thoughts and remarks. And since we've talked about data, we've also got Dr. Rajendra Jagtap with us, who's ex-CMD PMPML, which is Pune Mahanagar Parivahan Limited, and also the ex-CEO for Pune Smart City. So, Dr. Jagtap, Pune has been known for the work that you've done towards data policy and open data. Would you throw some light on that, sir? On how did Pune go about doing that and what have been the benefits for Pune?
Yeah, a very good afternoon. When we're talking about Pune especially, we started the whole exercise as a part of the Pune Municipal Corporation itself. About 2.5, 3 years back, when I was Additional Municipal Commissioner in Pune, we ensured that the open data policy was implemented and accepted by the city. And furthering that, the whole initiative as CEO Pune Smart City, we ensured that all data that was available with the city was thrown open to all citizens at large. While doing so, we ensured that the data was effectively taken out that would go on Faruqui, and that would help out a lot of individuals, not just to gain information, but this data will also help small startups and entrepreneurs who can stitch up some kind of a solution on that. And then looking at the problem statements that were there at the city level, they came out with varied kinds of solutions. We could see such kind of an applications which were later on picked up by the Pune Smart City. I'll just focus on one or two areas. One was pertaining to the street vendors, where we had Khela as one of the application that was picked up. And based on the data where Pune was the first city to go under GIS, GPS kind of a survey of street vendors, this data was thrown open and we had about 24,000 street vendors who were registered with the Pune Municipal Corporation, and their location was known geospatially. So these vendors, congregating them into a proper kind of an app where information pertaining to the kind of system that they were offering, the kind of services they were offering, their operational hours and location was something which was made available to the citizens. Then second to this was again where we went up with the Pune Traffic Police Department, and where we had a second kind of a startup which came up with an innovative kind of solution where problems pertaining to situations on the road, be it with potholes or traffic signals or violation of traffic or anything in particular that was seen, snapshots or photographs of the same could be put up and could be shared with the Pune traffic police. And the same was then rectified, and there was a value addition that took place into this whole system. And this integration of the system along with TomTom as an external partner brought out a lot of value addition to this whole system. So we could see that open data policy in particular started 2.5 years back, helped out, and there are case studies and proper solutions that were implemented. In addition to that, as part of the Pune Smart City, Pune took that initiative and was one of the first members to go up with the IUDX program that was put up by the ministry, that was MoHUA. So the Urban Data Exchange program with IIC Bangalore and Niti Aayog, undertaken by MoHUA and the Smart Cities Mission, had a lot of impetus and starting points that came up from the Pune Smart City. Again, in Pune, we were under the Smart City, we were one of the first cities to come up with the integrated command and control center, which gave a lot of database for compiling a lot of information that was lying with various departments, and that came up as a congregated whole. And this data pool was something that was quite useful. Lastly, when I have to talk about this whole system, we also had a local Pune Urban Data Exchange among multiple stakeholders within the city, which again has proven quite helpful to a lot of startups that are already functioning in the College of Engineering Pune, the Pune University, and the MIDC or the Software Technology Park of India. So we are seeing that data that has come.
For him, can you hear, sir?
I think so. There's some network problem with sir. So I think so. Let's move on to next speaker. Let's come
Yeah,
again.
I'll come back. Yeah, I'll come back to you, sir. Speaking, because we've talked about Dr. Jagtap talked about street vendors. Harikumar sir in Imphal, I think in the and I'm just joining streets here as a common. You've recently done a survey for Streets for People challenge, right? And which wherein the pedestrian, how can we have better pedestrian ways for the citizens? So any specific outputs that have come out of it, sir, which you would like to throw light upon, and as to what have been the citizens' point of view?
Thank you. Thank you for, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me in this conclave. And particularly, I would like to thank the Greater Warangal Smart City Corporation and, of course, GovConnect. Yes, we, Street for People, we had initiated this particular challenge as a part of the Smart City initiative. We are in the process of doing a pilot project right now. We have done some, citizen interactions, trying to find out what the what the citizens want their streets to be, and what kind of facility, what kind of environment should a street have for the citizens of all sections of the society. This was a very interesting survey which we did, and which came out with the survey's result. It came out that people had different kind of perceptions, in contrast to what we were thinking of and what we perceived actually. So, for example, like we have a lot of street women vendors, particularly the northeastern state. If you have visited earlier, you'll see that everywhere the vendors, particularly the vendors, are all ladies, and so they really play a very vital role on our street functionalities. So one of the very features which came out was, how do we accommodate, because we cannot live without these street vendors, and particularly this poor ladies, and how can we make a very comfortable accommodation on the streets of the city without without having to compromise much on other on other aspects and other facilities. So this gave us an idea, this gave a thought that how we can make some pockets on the street itself to be not only for the street vendors, a place for them to do their business, but it can be a happening place for the citizen, or for the street workers, or for street dwellers, that it has a very friendly, citizen friendly kind of adjustment. So we are now thinking of creating some mobile sort of, which is removable type, but mobile sort of stalls where these ladies can, they can do their vending business. At the same time, it's a more street friendly infrastructure, and can be some some point of recreation for youngsters also, where some with additions of other Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi facilities, some hangout points, some e-library sort of, street e-library sort of thing. So it's a mixture where these poor ladies or these poor vendors are also accommodated. The people, dwellers, street dwellers, are also can enjoy the facilities created. This is how we are trying to take forward as a pilot project right now. If this proves to be successful, and we hope it's going to be successful, we have already done some survey in the entire city where these corners can come up as some hangout point type of a kind, which is multi facility center type of thing, which can again be a place for vending also. So this is what we are trying to initiate right now as on the smart street for people. This is a pilot project which is going to come, but the only problem right now is that this COVID pandemic has hampered the implementation of the project. We are right now still, while the rest of the country is now almost done away with the second wave, but we are at least we are at the peak. We're still reeling on, trying to control pandemic, this COVID pandemic. The cases still recorded, is going on around 18-19% of positivity rate. And this is where, and still the city is in lockdown. So for the last more than 2 months now, since April and the end of March, April, we have been under complete lockdown. This is what has hampered us in, going further with our project. But nevertheless, we are hoping that things will improve in the near future, and we'll take it forward. And we hope to share our experience with all the other cities of this country. And we also, since most of the cities are also going ahead with these kinds of projects, and we would like to learn their experiences also, so that we can emulate here as well, whatever is feasible in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely, sir. I think a city can't live without its street vendors. And I'm being a Mumbaikar, I can vouch for it. We can't really do without it. So yeah, I think it's heartening to see that there's a specific focus on making the life better for those for the vendors. Since you talked about lockdown, sir, I think we've also begun unlockdown phase in a lot of areas of the country, and we've got Dr. Apurva Sharma, who's also the CEO of Silvassa Smart City with us. And sir, Silvassa, I think it started seeing huge amount of influx of tourists since the unlockdown has begun, whether it is from Gujarat, Maharashtra, or the rest of the country. And what are some of the initiatives that you have taken up to ensure that the safety and security, whilst the tourism booms, so the security of and security of the citizens also is kind of taken care
of? Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. With respect to the question that you have put up, basically, we would like to say that in Silvassa, our prime focus initially was to ensure that what the rest of the country has done, track, test, track, treat, those things, 3T method we used. And we were fortunate in getting a very good response in it. And our being a tribal predominated area, so we had to ensure that the tribal people were protected from the infections. So we tried to cordon off the villages and we keep them out of the infectious loop. And we were successful to quite a great extent. The second thing that we have done before opening the tourism sector was to ensure that a lot of our population is vaccinated. So if you see, where in our union territory, the vaccination rate is around 70%. So we, in our district and in Daman and Diu, we have reached 100%. So we are one of the few places in India where vaccination is comparatively good. So that is the idea. And with respect to the tourists that come in, we ensure that they have their RT-PCR tests and all done. And vaccination is also very important for the tourists also. We especially got special drives done initially itself for hotels, for the employees in the hotels, and we ensured that none of these people who are, the super spreaders, like your shopkeepers, your auto rickshaw drivers, whomsoever this tourist is likely to come in contact with. So all these people were picked up and were identified, surveys were done, and were vaccinated on priority. Yeah. So that ways we have been able to control the spread of infection, and currently we are like having maybe 1 case, 2 cases a day. So that is the kind of stability we have achieved in the last couple of months or so.
Thank you. That this is extremely heartening to see, especially the number that you mentioned, sir. I think it's a great achievement. So moving on, we've got Mr. Sanjit Kumar Pandey with us, who's also the CEO of Bhagalpur Smart City. And sir, my question to you is largely, given the rich heritage that you have in Bhagalpur, what are some of these smart city initiatives you've taken up to kind of accentuate the overall cultural heritage that you have?
Yeah, good afternoon, Alpesh. First of
Good
all,
afternoon,
Bhagalpur is known as Silk City, and it is very famous for Tasar silk. That is the special variety of Bhagalpur.
Yes.
And it is. We had a meeting under the chairmanship of DM Sir with Silk Board to revive and develop silk-related activities and skill development through ICT interventions for weavers, and there are 3 sections of laborers who work in silk sector. So all the stakeholders in that sector. Apart from that, even the municipal corporations, Jan Suvidha Kendra and smart toilets, we agreed to provide in the silk board office and area also, so that they also are part of the mainstream. So it serves 2 purposes. One is that revival of the cultural and heritage business of this area, and second aspect is to enhance the scope of social inclusion, because then they are also not deprived of the developments which are happening in other ABD parts. These are 2 aspects. Apart from that, we have a very famous Sandys compound in the city, which is a large open space, and we want to make it safe, sustainable, and enjoyable. So safety aspects will definitely be taken care through ICT interventions, and the third aspect is the accessibility of Bhagalpur. That is also a challenge, because there is no air connectivity, although there is a small airport. So on that front also we have started developing, and already whatever aspects can be done from smart city side we are doing, and we have taken up with the government of India and the government to take the city, at least to connect it to Clyde through at least Udan scheme under the government of India. So these are certain aspects. Apart from that, sustainability aspects and conservation aspects, they are required to for any cultural and heritage conservation, as well as what natural resources conservation. So rooftop solar we have done our first phase, and second phase is getting rolled out. Apart from that, Sandys compound is a big campus, so we have adopted rainwater harvesting and water conservation measures, so that not even a single drop of water gets drained out, and we are reviving 2 of the ponds through the drainage part to recharge our ponds which were dried up or on the verge of getting dried up. So that will be one aspect. And thirdly, there are some good religious places also within 40 kilometers. On those aspects also we are working through betterment of public transport, because in Bihar we want to make public transport, especially smart city area, safe, reliable, and accessible to all. So on that front also we are working. So these are some of the interventions which we have taken. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing those particular ideas, sir. We've got Dr. Aggarwal with us. She's the district collector for Nawanshahr in Punjab. Ma'am, my question to you is largely around Punjab as a state, and you've been one of the frontrunners in thinking about a state-level ICCC, Integrated Command and Control Center, ma'am. Ma'am, what have been your learnings and achievements in that area, so that the rest of the panel members can probably benefit out of it?
Definitely, yes. ICCC has been a core project in the smart cities, and Punjab as a state has 4 smart cities: Ludhiana, Jalandhar, Amritsar, and the newly added Sultanpur Lodhi smart city. So the project of ICCC had been in a lot of discussion as to whether we should have an integrated command and control center with the headquarters at the state level, centered at the Department of Local Bodies, State of Punjab, or it should be headquartered at the city level. and the issue has been discussed in detail. There are pros and cons to both the sides. A centralized ICCC allows for scaling, and it allows that newer cities can be added to it, it can be connected to it, the data can be stored on cloud, and we could save on the hardware and physical space. But at the same time, there were doubts about the lag in the data and the latency, and how useful a city-owned ICCC project can be. So yes, this has been in a lot of discussion, but yes, amongst the discussion, what has actually been emerged now is that Ludhiana smart city was in a peculiar condition, having a part of ICCC already being executed even before the conception of the smart city projects by
Mhm.
Government of India. So Ludhiana, in a way, as a part of Punjab, was already working on it. There were already almost half the city has already been covered, and hence it has been decided that Ludhiana will go on forward with its independent ICCC project, scaling up the
Okay.
existing center, and the plan is on about the rest of the Punjab. So this project has been extremely useful, especially for the policing part as of now. It has helped in ensuring safe city as well, and we proudly call it as Safe City Project of Ludhiana or Punjab. And we hope that it can be scaled up forward for other uses, including solid waste management and traffic regulation, and much more uses that are there to offer.
And civic services also, ma'am. If
Definitely.
yeah, perfect. So thank you. I think I've covered once all the panel members. What I'll now probably do is because this particular panel is around safe, resilient, and sustainable cities. My questions would be around the measures taken by your respective cities or states around making the city safe and resilient, and also the challenges around security and security, because we've had a lot of technical innovations as a part of smart cities, and again as a part of the pandemic, a lot of cities had to rapidly transform their government services, whether it is reaching out to citizens or it is delivering the services. So what have been the measures taken, and largely what have been the security aspects that you've covered is what I'll try and cover. Dr. Mittal, ma'am, can we probably start off with you as to what have been the measures taken up by Faridabad Smart City uh, in securing the cities, whether it is at the technological aspect or also making them safer for the citizens?
I think so. Ma'am is
Okay.
ma'am is so you can next you can put the question to Pankaj. I think so.
Yeah, Pankaj, maybe you can share your view on what is Infoblox doing around it. How is the industry moving towards the security,
Yeah.
especially whether it is technical security of the assets that you have, and also the SOPs around the physical security for the citizens.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So from the previous round of discussion in the panel, one thing is clear that every city is different. Their needs are different. The use cases that they're leveraging technology
Pankaj,
for.
Pankaj, sorry to interrupt. Alpesh, if you can mute your mic because the screen is getting switched. Sure, yeah. Pankaj, continue, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, Fahim. So what I was talking about is the use cases of the outcomes could be different, but there is a lot that is in common as to how this data is being collected. Now, if I go back to some of the statistics, in 2020, Gartner released a white paper which said 20 billion IoT devices are expected to be used in smart cities. We are only halfway through the year, and we are seeing about 50% increase already in that. The second statistics that we have is by 2030, we are expecting more than 50% of the country's population. Well, it's the statistics. We are yet to seeing that in real, to be living in urban cities. Now, what it appears is in cities, when there is a huge population, there could be different issues, different challenges, and some of the cities are also moving into the use cases. For example, how do we make sure that the traffic movement is smooth? And that is only possible if you're able to leverage the technology for collecting the data and identifying what could be the root cause issue. So one of the cities in Europe, I think, went with this project to install these sensors in the parking slots. So what it allowed them to do was to collect this data in real time, process this in the data center, and allow the citizens to be able to see and monitor where the parking slots are available. Because as it appeared after collecting this information, a lot of the traffic movement was because people were searching for the parking space. So there is a lot of information that can be collected, and we're looking at about 4 different pieces that connects everything together. The IoT things or devices that are at the edge, which are collecting the data, essentially the legacy dumb devices with a small CPU and IP address and some code that repeatedly does some function and connects back to the data center. The network infrastructure which connects these IoT to the backend, the command and control places, the data that is flowing on these networks, and the systems that are using this to store this data and process it and use it for better purposes. Now, there was also a comment about the utilization of, for instance, data for monetization and allowing it to be used by not only the government agencies, but also allowing it to connect to third parties. And the startup initiative using this data would only mean that the cities will have to start exposing their infrastructure that they've built to the outside world. And we all know that what a monster the internet is. The moment you start connecting your infrastructure to the different set of things, you are literally increasing the attack surface area for the bad guys to be able to get in. And that is where we are seeing some of the cities facing challenges how to get this straight in terms of, can we use some tools and technologies to ensure that the data that we've collected goes to only the parties that are being able to use it. It does not go to the people, bad people or adversaries who can use it for malicious purposes, right? And it appears that, although there are a lot of countermeasures that have been done at the infra level, at the security level, by deploying the traditional methods such as firewalls and proxies and IPSs. But we have seen a specific trend in last couple of years, and that is how these adversaries are effectively able to utilize a very common protocol, a very lightweight protocol that was actually designed for people to connect and talk to each other, that is DNS, that allows us to resolve, let's say, www.yahoo.com into an IP address. The problem is this protocol is required to run the infrastructure, and it is almost open everywhere. And that gives the opportunity to the bad guys to be able to use the same protocol for malicious purposes. So the data that is being collected, there is always a potential risk of not only when you're exposed, the bad guys are able to get into the network, but also DNS as a layer can be effectively used for doing things like data breaches. Because now, apart from using the DNS just for a legitimate purposes to access those services, it can also be used as a tunneled protocol to send the sensitive data out of the networks, and the bad guys will have access to it. They will do things like ransomware and probably ask for money. It's not only the monetary cost that the cities or municipalities have to pay when these incidents happen, but there is a lot of money that gets spent into identifying the root cause, getting the consultant to hire, the reputation, the trust that people will lose once incident of this type can happen. And this is where companies like Infoblox get in and help organizations and infrastructure deploy a state-of-the-art platform which from the grounds up provides that visibility at the DNS layer, because the protocol is required to run the internet and you cannot live without it. So might as well use it apart from a first point of connection to convert it into first point of or first line of defense. And then we start to use some of these advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics to be able to continuously monitor the IoT devices, the systems that are in ICCC, the data center, the compute sources, and ensures that if there is any incident that we are seeing from a DNS specific perspective, we are able to identify it, we're able to mitigate it, and we're also able to do automation to ensure that similar incidents cannot happen anywhere across the infrastructure. So there is a lot of opportunity with the cities to be able to implement these use cases, but at the same time, there is also a cautionary tale as to how do we ensure that the data that is getting stored is also safe and is only available to the people who are meant to be able to use it.
Thanks, Pankaj. Dr. Sharma, for in Silvassa, I think basis is the learning that you've had, sir, during the first round of Smart Cities mission, and considering the various security aspects that we have, whether it is citizen data, tourist data, or even your IT assets that you have deployed in Silvassa. So, what are the various measures that you've taken as a part of your smart cities to ensure that the security of the data is intact?
When we talk about security of data, there are three primary aspects that I look at. One is the technological aspect, the second is the procedural aspect, and the third is the human resource aspect. So any of these are three pillars that I see as the pillars of data security. So from technological perspective, we have gone for all of the equipments that the smart city mission prescribes for the data center, except for one or two particular things which are only required in banks. So that particular device itself costs in multiple crores. Apart from that, we've purchased most of the things, and so from technological perspective, we have covered all the bases. With respect to the SOPs, procedures, the SOPs need to be in place. So who has access to what? That SOP has to be very clear, and who will do what will be the passwords, how frequently the passwords will be changed. Can there be more than one mobile number for a particular OTP? Can a person access a particular dashboard from remote site and all those things? So these are the SOPs that have to be put in place. If any of these SOPs are not up to the mark, then you can definitely have data breach. So that is the second pillar that I look at. And the third pillar is the human resource. So when we talk about the human resource, people have to be trained in these data procedures, in these how to handle the data, how to anonymize the data when there is any exchange of data between the organization and other organizations. So there has to be a proper protocol. If the manpower is not trained, if the manpower does not know how to handle the data, how to go about the SOPs, how to maintain the infrastructure, physical infrastructure. So for example, if they don't know which port to access, they will go with their pen drive and they will attach the pen drive to the. So all these aspects need to be taken care of with respect to the human resource point of view. So through these strategies, we are able to ensure that the human resource of the data of the people, the citizens, the tourists, and all these, because there's so much of data, not just these people. We have this e-beat project that is going on. The police is now digitizing its entire data. So now that e-beat is something, data can get leaked, and they know which police officer is going at which site at what time and what is he doing. That's very sensitive data. So that data security has to be ensured. Then we have the online building plan and approval systems. That data has to be secured. We have this Fit Silvassa application. So citizens, how often they cycle, where do they cycle, and what rewards are they winning, and all those things. So it's a very localized app. So people can communicate on that app, and they have these challenges, rewards, and all. So that data has to be protected. So in this case, with respect to like Fit Silvassa app, particularly if we talk about, we have chosen for the cloud-based security aspects. So when we go for the Government of India empaneled cloud service providers, Amazon Web Service, Google, and all these things, then you are reasonably safe. The issue starts when you have a physical server and a
data center
in your center. Yes. So if you don't have a data center, then go for cloud. If you have a data center, then have proper security measures, the 3 pillars that I spoke of. So these are the various ways through which we can ensure how, how to ensure the data security. Further, whenever you back up the data, that backing up, the backup, wherever you take that backup, disaster recovery, that also needs to be equally secure. Often what happens is your data center is secure, but your disaster recovery is, it is not that secure. So we have to ensure that the data disaster recovery is also in a very secure place.
Perfect, sir. I think sir, point was very clear. DC or no DC, whether it is cloud or on-prem DC, I think endpoint security, the SOPs around endpoint security are equally important. Dr. Aggarwal, ma'am, whilst we've now spoken about citizen data security and all of that, there have been some major attacks on the government institutions from a ransomware standpoint, whether it is a state-sponsored attack or somebody else. Ma'am, what has Punjab probably done to kind of secure its critical assets from a security standpoint, and mostly maybe from a technological security standpoint?
Definitely data security, since we are now into the data age, and it is well known data is the new oil, so data security becomes as much important. And I would like to highlight that there are 3 key aspects towards data security. The CIA tried confidentiality of the data needs to be maintained at all times. The integrity has to be ensured that there is no manipulation, and the data should be accessible to all those who need it at all times. So to ensure all of this, Punjab government as a whole has built its own in-house data center, the state data center, and it has now been shifted to the latest technologies, and all the security features are being implemented. The new firewalls are also being implemented, and it is now the purpose of the aim of the government is that all the data, citizen-centric data, is to be maintained on the SDC only. At the same time, the basic civic services or the citizen services which are being delivered, earlier they were being delivered by the Punjab through Suvidha centers. Now they were being delivered through the Seva Kendra portal, and changes have also been made to the government portal, and latest e-Seva portal has been started with newer features and more security features. So data security is the key, since as a state, we are holding huge amounts of citizen data, and it can be manipulated at any times. Say, for example, even during the recent COVID times, Punjab had launched its own Kova app, and this app was used to maintain the citizen data, the patient data, and even the hospital's data as to how many beds are there, how many patients are there, and their monitoring was being done through this. So all of this data was stored through the state SDC, and continuous steps are being taken to ensure the security and safety of this data.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think considering the various steps that have been taken up to either maintain the security of your data or your assets, I think the next question, and maybe Pankaj, I'll first throw this to you and then move on to the other panel members, is where do you think the smart cities should now further look forward to from a security standpoint? What should be the next steps for various smart cities, and especially for the smart cities mission to move towards, because as everybody's pointed out, there is trillions of data now, and all the cities are now actually moving towards how do you use this data. Panel members did talk about monetization of data and all of that, and giving better citizen services. So what is that, what are the bare minimum things that and maybe it should not be every city doing it, but it probably can become a standard operating procedure for cities. So what are some of those things which can be done to ensure data security?
Yeah, thank you. So if you know, if I was talking to an industrial sector maybe 10 years ago, and I would like to have a conversation on cybersecurity, they probably would not care a lot at that point in time. But unfortunately, the incidents like Stuxnet or Conflicker that happened on one of the European facilities has given this awareness to any institution that is going towards the journey of leveraging the technology to be able to always be aware, always be cautious, and have all the right set of tools, technologies, and people in place to be able to address those, right? Having said that, one of the first challenge that we hear about in these kind of environment is there is always increasing number of devices that I'm deploying, because with every new project or initiative, you're deploying all these sensors, right? Some of the cities have gone up to the stage of using the street light as a sensor to collect the data, such as the parking, the people movement, the temperature. So there is a lot of sensors and IoT devices that are getting deployed. At one stage, it becomes very difficult to have a consistent view of all the infrastructure that is getting deployed. So the first challenge that we hear about from these institutions is, how do I get the visibility of all the assets that I've deployed? Because I cannot secure if I cannot see. So visibility is one of the first challenge. And when you go towards the journey of security, the moment you have visibility, then you can also start to have a better control on the infrastructure. And then you start to deploy those key pillars. And the foundation layers, like I said earlier, has to start with, what are my key networking or core services without which my infrastructure cannot live without? And the answer is very simple: the DNS, the DHCP, and the IP address management. Any initiative on the project side always lead to collection of data and using it in some shape or form in the cloud. It could be private cloud. It could also be a public cloud. You're using software-defined networking. There is machine learning, analytics. Everything is moving at the speed of automation, right? So you need that first layer of strong, resilient platform that allows you to use all those platforms effectively. The second thing is, once you have created that base platform that integrates very well with your initiatives, then you're looking at using it for improving the overall security. And like I said earlier, the use of DNS as a key protocol in the network is very important, because 90% of the time, the bad guys would want to use DNS for data breaches. And that's one area, if we are able to bridge the gap, we are literally reducing the attack surface area by 90%. And once you're using the technology to be able to address those issues around data leakage, around infiltration, around ransomware, around cryptocurrency communication, once you're able to address that, then you want to use the technology to also build an ecosystem and being able to talk to each other. Because what is happening is we're deploying a lot of security solutions in the design, but most of them are coming from different vendors. What this means is they're talking different language. It is very difficult for any institute to be able to integrate them. And in security, we say that you need to have a system of systems. Even if you deploy a siloed system, you have to have an architecture in place which allows you to share the intelligence that is detected by one system to share it with another, right? Because some of these could be doing one particular functionality, right? So the idea is to build an ecosystem that is built on the design of automation. Why would you want to do that? Because if one component in the infrastructure detects something malicious, you want to use that leverage, use that information to have an automated communication with the rest of the security devices, right? So let's say an IoT sensor is malicious now, and it's showing a bad behavior. It is not in the normal range. You see some suspicious activity there. What you want to be able to do is, there could be one system that is detecting it, but there could be other system who can take an automated action to be able to isolate that system from the network. Because once one particular system is infected, everything is interconnected, right? And then it opens the complete network to the bad guys. So you want to immediately take the action to isolate that particular infected system from the network. And that is where the orchestration, the integration, and automation comes into the picture. And then the platform from Infoblox does this exactly. Once we detect any system in the network, because we have the visibility of the complete network, and everybody's using DNS, right? Once we detect that there's one particular system that is showing bad behavior, we can go and talk to your firewall, your IPS, your proxy, any system that you have in the network to take those automated actions. So your security team do not have to do repetitive tasks manually. Eventually, you are improving the efficiency of command and control center. You would need less number of people because there are less number of incidents to be addressed manually. And at the end of the day, you're able to automate the security, which is the real need right now from a cybersecurity perspective. Because when you're looking at the other side, you're looking at millions of bad guys trying to target, and you have only finite number of people trying to address those incidents. So the automation is the only solution that can help, even in the security portion.
Thanks, Pankaj. Okay, so we've got, I think, exactly 14 minutes. And what we'll do is Mr. Pandey, Dr. Sharma, and Dr. Aggarwal, for all of you, I think I have one last question, and maybe we'll go with Mr. Pandey going towards it first, is what suggestions would you have for either the smart city missions or the other city administrations to ensure that whilst they are striving towards giving better citizen services, they are also able to make it safe and secure?
Yeah, for safety and security, the foremost requirement is the operating IT system, around the clock operating IT systems with backup support. And second is, and most important, is many panelists have already said, is data security. Because now, after so much of data crowding, even people and citizens at large have their apprehensions that whether my personal data might be misused or any data pertaining to me. So as has been rightly pointed out by some other panelists, it is the foremost requirement. And second aspect is that general safety also. Apart from, ICT interventions can help us, but physical safety and other aspects also. And educating people, especially in the context of Bihar cities, educating people of their citizens' rights and all, that is also one aspect, so that they can demand their rights as per Citizens' Charter and all. So that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Sharma, sir, any comments from you on how can cities probably, whilst developing and rapidly developing various services, citizen services, or whether it is giving civic services, what are some of the basic things that the cities could do to ensure security of the data, and also, sir, security of its own citizens, and not just data?
I think the most important thing with respect to security is, it is something that as long as it is functioning, nobody takes note. But it is like the goalkeeper. You never know how many goals he has saved. You only come to know about the goals that have been, that past the goalkeeper. So you need to have the rest of the equipment that you can possibly procure. You need to have people who can do that task. It is something that should not be neglected. So for example, when we were talking of, when our data center was being designed, there was a question whether we should go for what sort of firewall we should go for. Should there be a redundancy in the firewall? Definitely there should be a redundancy in the firewall. Should have always have two firewalls. You cannot have, okay, it's okay 30% of the times, 10%, that small window is sufficient. So when we talk about the hardware, there should always, these critical components should always have 1+1 redundancy, this data security hardware. And with respect to the software, we should always have the necessary licenses and upgrade them. What happens is, we purchase the license and okay, now we have got it, purchased it, and we don't take care of it later on. These websites that we develop, the security audit should be repeated yearly. It should not be a one-time affair. What happens in government, when it comes on board on NIC, that is the only time when we do a security audit. And the risk of not doing security audit increases when you go for a private cloud or you go for your own data center, because it is not mandatory. When we want to put up anything on, let's say, dnh.nic.in, then it has to have STQC. But if I want to put it on Amazon Web Server, it does not ask for a security audit. So often what happens is, when you want to push, this is what we saw in COVID times. A lot of your websites of the state governments were also not on nic.in. The reason was STQC would have taken time, and that exposes us to a lot of risks. So the second thing is that, you know, we should have regular updation of the SOPs, your regular updation, security audits, your hardware and all this manpower training. This should go, it should be a repeated affair, you know, like we have disaster management drills, we should have such drills also. That is the key thing that I would like to emphasize upon.
So, sir, SOPs, security audit, and may I also add ensuring that the recommendations in the audit are also implemented.
Yes,
So yeah, yeah. Okay. I can see Nilkant Poman. Is that Jagtap sir? You've
No. Nilkant
Okay.
Poman is for next panel, so he has just
Okay.
logged in a bit.
Okay. Not an issue. Ma'am, Dr. Aggarwal, I think same question towards you. What are some of the things you think should be done by cities to ensure security?
So, my fellow panelists have rightly pointed out the key concerns, and I would just like to highlight that security should not be added as an afterthought. In fact, it is one of the prerequisite when we bring on any IT initiative. So, security initiatives should be built in from right from the very start, and it should not just be from the technology aspect also, but the human resource or the people aspect is very important to be taken care of. So the organization structure needs to be redefined in current times, and we need to redefine our organizations as to how they'll be more IT friendly, and they should have core IT teams along with the security teams working hand in hand together at right at the planning stage itself. The same things should be in consonance with the financial teams also, because all of these things definitely require some budget involvement also. So other than the technical aspects, it is very important to look at security from the financial point of view, from the organizational point of view, and from the HR point of view. So until and unless we have an integrated planning right from the very beginning, we will not be able to provide enough security, and we will not be able to leverage our data and utilize it in the best of manners. So I would just like to highlight that this is
Thank you, ma'am. I think should not be an afterthought. Should be a continuous affair. Are the two major keywords I think I can get out of this particular panel conversation. And it's heartening to see that all the heads of the cities are actually putting security to the forefront. So thank you all. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to host this session. Once again, thank you very much for your time. For him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alpesh. It was a very interesting panel, and you're on mute.
Okay, thanks. I'll log off. Thank you very much.
Sure. It was a very interesting panel, and I'd like to thank everyone from Pankaj to Sanjit ji to Shena ma'am, to Hari sir, then Sanjit sir, everyone, Rajendra sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Pankaj.
Thank you. Thank you. See you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.
Okay, thank you.